thank the gentlelady from Washington for letting me follow her on the floor, and to a certain extent I'm going to follow up precisely on the remarks that she made at the end of her speech. I too have been disappointed with the deployment of the first half of the TARP money, and I supported that deployment in the hopes that it would stabilize the marketplace, ease credit for our customers, and help the housing market. While it probably did stabilize the banking system, there's yet to be a loosening of credit. There's yet to be a recovery in the housing market. And looking ahead, we continue to look at suggestions that throw money at the problem rather than getting to the root cause of the problem. In fact, I think for the best of intentions, people are struggling to meet the symptoms of a serious illness rather than treat the illness. And I'd like to direct my remarks tonight to that illness. The illness, as the gentlelady from Washington referred to, is the collapse of the United States housing, which began in the last quarter of 2007. I introduced in the first quarter of 2008, in January, a housing tax credit of up to $15,000 for the purchase of any house that was standing vacant or in foreclosure. I did it for a couple of reasons. Number one, I was in the real estate business for 33 years, and I was in it in 1974, a year in which we had a housing collapse worse than the current situation. While many people think this one is bad, it's not as bad as 74. In December of 1974, there was a 3-year supply of unsold standing new houses in the United States of America. That is a catastrophic inventory. We currently have a supply of about 11 to 13 months, depending on the state that you're in. That's not a good market, but it's not 36 months, which is a horrible market. President Gerald Ford, a Republican, and a Democratic Congress came together and passed a $2,000 tax credit to any family that bought and occupied one of those standing homes. Within 1 year's time, which was the limited time of the tax credit, 2/3 of the housing inventory on the market was sold. Values stopped declining and started improving. And we had a stabilization of our economy, the end of a recessionary period, and the beginning of prosperity. I come here tonight because about an hour and a half ago I dropped a bill known as Fix Housing First, an effort for me and others in this body to rekindle that debate of last January. Now, last year we did pass a housing tax credit, but was a now you see it, now you don't tax credit. It was a first-time home buyer credit of $7,500 that was really a refundable loan, interest-free, because over 15 years you would pay the credit back to the government in the form of income taxes. It was an incentive, but it was weak. It was not bold. The tax credit we introduced last year was scored by CBO at $11,400,000,000. And finance felt at that time, and maybe rightfully so, that was too big a price to pay and too expensive. Well, because we didn't do it, in October of this year, we approved $700 billion to address the symptoms of the problem, which is the failure of the housing market. Now, I had the privilege yesterday of meeting with some of President-elect Obama's team, Rahm Emanuel, Dr. Summers, and others, and told them precisely what I'm saying on the floor of the Senate today. And that is, I hope they will embrace this concept of incentivizing the housing market so we can stabilize values, stop the continuing erosion of inequity, and begin to reflate, not inflate, but reflate the housing market. In America today, 20% of the houses are underwater, meaning there's more owed on them than they are worth. That means equity lines of credit with our banks are in default. It means students going to college are losing the money their parents had for tuition. It means that there's not enough liquidity in households anymore or credit availability to make purchases of durable goods that are important to our system. And our system continuing to feed in a downward spiral on the illiquidity, the lack of equity, and the lack of a marketplace for housing. I was in this business for a long time, and I called 10 people that worked for me a number of years ago last weekend in Atlanta. And I asked them, I said, what's going on in the market? Tell me what the buyers are saying, or are there any buyers? Talked to a lady by the name of Glennis Beecham. She said, Johnny, I had 9 people come to my open house last weekend. And that's a good crowd for an open house in the marketplace. Every one of them had the money, and every one of them wanted to buy, but they were looking for two things. A short sale, which means somebody selling their house for less than's owed on it and getting a discount from the lender, which means it's a downward price, or they're looking for somebody whose house is going into foreclosure that they think they can steal. They don't want to even make an offer on that 80% of the people's houses in this country who are making their payments, aren't in default, aren't in foreclosure, but might need to sell. So the marketplace has died. Now, Fixed Housing First proposes the following. Repeal the $7,500 tax we passed last year, which is not being used, by the way. That credit has not been used to any extent whatsoever. And replace it with a tax credit that could go from $10,000 to $22,000, depending on the formula. And it would be a monetizable tax credit. What that means is this tax credit good for this year, January 1 to December 31st of 2009. But you allow the monetization or the claiming of that credit against the 2008 income taxes of that family. 2008 income taxes come due in April of this year, the 15th. We all know that. By allowing it to be taken, the credit to be taken against 2008 income taxes, you can monetize that money at the closing, use it as a part of the down payment, and immediately incentivize the marketplace. Is that a little costly? Sure. Is it something we'd rather not do? Probably. But what are we going to do, Mr. President? Watch the marketplace go down to where 4 out of every 5 houses are underwater? Watch sales go down to where there is no viable housing market in this country? It has not stopped spiraling, and it continues, and everything feeds off of it. I don't want to belabor this point, but I want to tell you, I want to talk to the American people, the people of Georgia. The community bankers are hamstrung right now. Most of their investments are in real estate, residential construction, and acquisition and development loans. With no marketplace to buy the lots or buy the houses, they have no cash flow coming in to service the loans. They're deteriorating in terms of their value. Americans who have been transferred, who are making their payments, who have a viable house, who have to sell it to move to the next city of choice. There's no marketplace to buy that house, so that's stagnating. Consumer products. Take carpets, for example. The state of Georgia, the county of Whitfield, city of Dalton, produces about 85% of the domestic carpet in the United States of America. It is shut down. The mills are going. Why? People aren't recarpeting. They aren't redoing their houses. New houses aren't selling. The market has gone. And you could go on and on with durable products made in the United States of America whose industries are now in trouble because the housing market has taken a severe hit over a protracted period of time. So my plea to the President-elect, to my friends on both sides of the aisle, to the members of the United States House of Representatives, as we are deploying countless billions of dollars to react to problems that are manifesting because of a failed housing market and mistakes that were made in the past. Let's put some money out there to incentivize Mr. and Ms. America who want the American dream to buy a home, to buy one for their family, occupy it as their residence, give them a tax credit for doing it. It is a small price for the government to pay to begin to restore the industry that got us to where we are and will lead us out of these dangerous and dark times. So I come tonight on behalf of the homeowners of your state, Florida, and mine, the community bankers, the realtors, the home builders, the fix-it people, the durable goods producers, the building supply makers, the landscapers, every job that has been lost and gone, and in some cases forever, because the housing market in this country has collapsed. We've learned our lessons for loose underwriting. We've learned our lesson from loaning money to people who really weren't qualified to borrow, and we've paid a terrible price for that lesson, both the country and the people. It is time for us to do what we know we should have done, have quality underwriting, available credit, but have accountability in our lending system, make sure values are appraised right, underwriting's done right, and credit is available, but people are qualified. If we can do that and incentivize people to come back because of the tax credit, we can solve this problem. I don't want to oversimplify the gravity of the problem we face, but the housing markets let us in, The housing market will lead us out. It is time for us to fix housing first. Our failure to do so will cost us a lot more than $700 billion of our taxpayers' money. And countless Americans who shouldn't will lose their homes, lose their jobs, and lose their faith in the greatest country on the face of this earth. I ask my colleagues to study this recommendation. I hope the President-elect will embrace it, and I hope quickly we can fix housing first in the United States of America. And I yield back and note the absence of a quorum.